President Biden on Howard Stern today. I'll start with the Democrat from New York. Why?
Hey now, one of the best radio hosts of all time, one of the best presidents we have right now. So we're very happy that he's there. Look, Howard Stern's got a very large audience of persuadable voters who tend to not be in the demographic category that Biden gets. So going on to Howard Stern, whose fan base is very devoted to him. I've been listening to him since I was 12 years old. I love Howard Stern, king of all media. I'm a little upset that they didn't talk about JD's gambling problem today, but you guys don't get that. Others will. You know, I think it's a very persuadable group of people. He knew that it would be a very biographical interview. That's how Howard does it the first time he meets somebody. It was a fantastic interview. I listened to every minute of it. I thought the president sounded great. And I think it was a good idea for him to do it because people have been saying, hey, you're not sitting down with people. People are afraid to go. People are afraid to go on Howard Stern. Celebrities avoid Howard Stern because he goes into details with them. But the president didn't.
But President Biden is also avoiding traditional media.
That's 100% correct. And this was much more of a softball interview by Howard Stern. He wasn't really going in at President Biden. But to Blake's point here, you have seen reporting this week about the strained relationship between the White House and the New York Times, that they're reporting that the president doesn't do harder interviews or really traditional interviews of any style. He snubbed the Super Bowl interview, which again would be a great persuadable audience for the president, but that's not one he wanted to engage in. They are engaging in a very strange tactic by going on Howard Stern because you talk about it being a large persuadable audience, but I don't think it's as persuadable as you think it is. It is by the host, but not necessarily
I think it is. I think, first of all, I think it was a very strong interview, proper modulation the entire time. I thought the president did a fantastic job, and it is very persuadable. This is a group of voters he doesn't have, and if he peels off just a small chunk of them, it'll have a major impact on the election.
I think it humanizes them is what it
Absolutely.
does. But I also think that this is, I mean, Trump doesn't like mainstream media either. So between the two presidential candidates, neither of them want to engage in mainstream media. Sorry, Blake. Are you mainstream?
Trust me, we would love to have either of them on. And as you know, we would be fair and tough. But what about the headline as well from President Biden, Jonae, saying today, yeah, I am happy to debate him. Is that what's going to happen, or is that a hedge?
I think this is President Biden saying, bring it on, right? This is an opportunity for him to go face-to-face with Trump and show that contrast in real time. And so I think this is not him hedging a bet or not him trying to signal anything. I think it's him taking the gloves off and saying, let's debate on the stage.
You think he's taking the gloves off? Because, I mean, Donald Trump is basically saying, let's do this tonight. I will do this tonight here at the courthouse in New York.
And he'd be ready to do it.
These are we're not picking a fight on the playground. We're trying to pick the President of the United States. There is a commission on debates. The Democrats are participating in the Commission on Debates. The Republicans, headed by his daughter-in-law, are not.
Traditionally, there are the
three.
For the folks who are watching us or listening to us on SiriusXM who may not know, there's the Independent Debate Commission. They pick 3 for the presidency, 1 for the vice presidency, and there's a question, Erin, about whether or not that's going to be the avenue or the mechanism this time around.
Well, under the previous chair at the RNC, Ronna McDaniel, she did put out a letter saying that they were not interested in working with the Independent Debate Commission because of concerns of bias. Now there is new leadership at the RNC, so what they do and how they do it. Remember, you can have a presidential debate without the Independent Debate Commission. You can use other routes.
We just haven't done it.
Well, that's true, but that doesn't mean these are extraordinary times, extraordinary measures, and extraordinary.
It's not that extraordinary. He's running for president. If he really means anytime, any place, participate in the commission.
How many debates do you think?
I think there's one.
Just one.
I really do. I think there's one. But debates have kind of gone out the window. I mean, Trump didn't show up at one single primary debate.
Not one.
Never would have happened.
Not our NewsNation debate in Alabama. Not
but
the
that
others
worked to his favor in the primary. I truly believe.
Well, he didn't want to debate.
But I'm saying no other candidate would ever just say, I'm not showing up, and he was able to, and it helped him.
I think that's to the point about this being an extraordinary time. He's playing by a different set of rules because he's not a typical politician. He comes from that celebrity media entrepreneurial background, and that's why when you put these two head to head, it's going to be a different outcome. Maybe it is only one.
Ashley said 1. Give me a number. How many?
I think 2.
Jonae?
1, Donald Trump does not want to debate Joe Biden.
I don't know about that.
I think that he's responding to a challenge. He feels challenged. He
was
like
the one who said he would do it first.
Bring it on.
I think 1, and I think it should be a longer debate with 1 camera and 1 microphone in a studio so that we can get real answers from these guys. Okay. And somebody really boring as the moderator, not you.
Because I'm interesting?
You're very interesting.
I will moderate it, though. I promise. Thank you for watching, and make sure you go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.